When an avoidant and an empath stop chasing each other, it isn't just the end of communication, it's the beginning of realization. This moment when both finally stop becomes a mirror, one that shows what was real and what was only running away. You see, the chase between an avoidant and an empath is never just about love, it's about fear, control, and emotional survival. One runs because closeness feels dangerous, the other chases because distance feels unbearable. And for a long time that cycle keeps them both alive, in a painful yet familiar rhythm. But when both stop, when neither reaches out, when silence replaces urgency, something shifts. The avoidant, who once found comfort in space, begins to feel the quiet as isolation, and the empath, who once begged for connection, starts to rediscover peace in solitude. It's not anger, it's not pride, it's an awakening. Because when the messages stop and the doors close, you're no longer reacting, you're reflecting. You start to notice what the chase had been hiding all along, your patterns, your wounds, and your worth. The avoidant begins to realize that space without love feels hollow. The empath begins to understand that love without balance feels heavy. And in this stillness, without blame, without words, both start to see themselves more clearly. Sometimes stopping the chase is not about giving up on each other. It's about finally meeting yourself, because only in the quiet can truth appear, truth about what you were running from, and what you were desperately trying to hold on to. This is not the end of the story, it's the beginning of understanding what connection really means, when both stop chasing, and simply pause. In this video we'll unfold what truly happens, when you and an avoidant stop chasing each other, emotionally, mentally, and energetically. And how that silence, as painful as it feels, might be the very thing that finally sets both of you free. What happens first? At first, there's a strange calm, no more messages, no waiting, no overthinking, no reaching out just to fill the silence. Everything stops. For the avoidant, this feels like a breath of relief. Finally, no pressure, no expectations, no one waiting for them to open up or respond. They sit in their quiet room, maybe scrolling mindlessly, convincing themselves, this is what I needed. Finally, peace. They start sleeping better, eating in silence, even enjoying the freedom they once craved. They tell themselves it's better this way, that distance means safety, that solitude means control. But for the empaths, the quiet feels different. It's not peace, it's exhaustion disguised as calm. After all the reaching, all the trying, they're simply tired. They don't check their phone anymore, they don't reread old messages or watch the typing dots that never turn into words. They sit in the same silence, whispering to themselves, I guess this is how it ends. And for a while, both believe they've escaped. The avoidant believes they've escaped emotional chaos. The empath believes they've escaped the endless loop of chasing. But deep beneath that stillness, something starts to stir. The avoidant begins to notice how quiet their world really is. No one asking how their day was, no one laughing at their dry humor, no one sending a good morning text. What once felt like relief, slowly starts to feel like emptiness, and the empaths, they begin to feel the ache of absence. Not because they miss the pain, but because their heart still remembers the connection beneath it all. When they scroll through photos, or hear a song that once meant something, a small part of them whispers, did they ever really care? Both think they've moved on. Both think they've found peace, but in truth, they've only paused the noise, because silence has a way of amplifying what's real. When the chasing ends, both are left alone with what they were avoiding, their thoughts, their fears, their loneliness. The avoidant realizes that peace without connection feels hollow, and the empath realizes that silence without closure feels heavy. This stage, this quiet, deceptive calm, is not the end of the story. It's the emotional stillness before the storm of awareness. Soon, one will start to wonder why the other hasn't reached out, and the other will begin to see their worth in that very silence. That's when the energy begins to shift, and everything quietly starts to change. After the calm silence, something new begins to take shape. No noise, no conflict, just an unseen change, as if the color of the air itself is shifting, like a dimly lit room slowly letting the light back in. The energy that once flowed between them, the pulling, the pushing, the chasing, the escaping, now begins to fade, softly, quietly. The avoidant silence, which once felt like strength, starts to echo back at them. and the empath's quiet, which once felt like exhaustion, now becomes a message, wordless, yet deeply powerful. The avoidant begins to feel that something is missing. They check their phone at night, no new message, no where are you, no I miss you. They start to wonder, did the empaths really leave? Did they truly give up this time? Then memories return, moments that once felt small, insignificant. The way the empaths smiled when things were silent, the tiny details only they used to notice. And somewhere deep inside, a realization stirs, maybe this time, we really lost something real. On the other side, the empaths is also changing. They no longer check their phone every minute. They don't reread old messages anymore. They start breathing again, in the silence, over a cup of tea, while listening to music, spending quiet time with themselves. And in one soft moment, the heart whispers, I didn't lose them, I found myself again. This is where the balance of power begins to shift. The one who always pulled away now feels the emptiness, and the one who always chased is finally learning to stand still, on their own. The avoidant grows confused. They were certain the empaths would always return, that no matter how far they went, the empaths would always knock again. But when that doesn't happen, when the empath's silence replaces their noise, the avoidant feels for the first time the full weight of their own loneliness. The empaths has changed too. They no longer try to fix or convince anyone. They've learned that love is not begging, and peace isn't found in someone's return, it's found in self-acceptance. Now the connection that was once built on fear slowly begins to dissolve. The avoidant's distance no longer feels safe, and the empath's silence no longer feels weak. This silence becomes a mirror that reflects the truth. Those who run are just as afraid as those who keep reaching out. And this is the turning point, when both finally begin to see that love, without awareness and understanding, was never love at all, just a habit they both mistook for it. The emotional mirror, deep realization. After the space settles, something powerful begins to unfold, not through words, not through messages, but through quiet realization. For the first time, both of you stop looking at each other and begin to see yourselves. The avoidant starts to realize that the distance they always protected wasn't peace, it was protection. They didn't need space from the other person. They needed space from their own fears. That freedom they kept defending was actually fear in disguise, fear of being seen, fear of needing someone, fear of being loved too deeply, and then losing it all. Meanwhile, the empath begins to see something just as important. They realize that their endless giving, their constant waiting, explaining and proving, was never pure love either. It was survival, a way to feel worthy by being needed, a way to earn the connection that should have been mutual all along. And now that the chase has stopped, there is no one left to convince, only themselves to face. In this quiet space, healing begins in unexpected ways. The empath starts to remember the things that once made them whole, their passions, their voice, their peace. They begin to rebuild the parts of themselves that were too busy waiting to be chosen. The avoidant, on the other hand, starts to notice something haunting. The silence that once felt safe now feels isolating. The world around them seems too still, and in that stillness, they finally meet the one person they were running from, themselves. There's a moment, small but profound, when both begin to understand what truly happened, that the chase was never really about the other person. It was about the void inside each of them. The avoidant ran because closeness triggered their fear of losing control. The empath chased because distance triggered their fear of not being enough. And now, with no chase left, there's nowhere to hide from that truth. The avoidant begins to feel the cost of their emotional armor. How many times they called it independence, when it was really loneliness, dressed in strength. The empath too sees how their love became a mission, to heal what was never theirs to fix. This realization doesn't come with anger. It comes with clarity and quiet grief, because both start to understand that they weren't enemies, they were mirrors, each reflecting the other's unhealed parts, one's fear of being trapped, and the other's fear of being abandoned. And as this truth sinks in, something soft emerges, compassion, not for each other, but for themselves. For the first time, both begin to forgive the versions of themselves that didn't know better, the versions that loved from fear instead of freedom. And that's the beginning of something new, not reconciliation, but realization. A kind of peace that doesn't need chasing, and doesn't need running, because now both finally see the reflection clearly. When the avoidant and the empath both stop chasing, they're not just freeing themselves from each other, they're breaking free from the patterns of their own wounds. This is the turning point where every heart has to make a choice. If you're the one who truly wants to move on, remember, healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means accepting every memory with softness, without letting it imprison you again. Give new meaning to your days. Meet not new people but new feelings within yourself. Listen to your own silence again, because that's where your new beginning hides. And if you're the one who wants to return, you must understand one thing: coming back is only possible when both have changed. A new beginning cannot grow on old wounds, old patterns, or old hopes. If you wish to return, don't just knock on the door, come back with a transformed heart. Become someone who now has peace to offer, not just desire. Because the truth is, whether the paths separate or meet again, love only lasts when both understand that once the chase ends, the real connection begins with themselves.